Ah,
Whoa!
as Tim would say, are we live? Yes, we're live. And unfortunately, my good friend Tim Sohn here, the Tim and Jim show, can't make it today, a little under the weather. But Tim, I'm not going to forget you. So we've got the Tim doing the Tim. Gotta get that into the show because I know he's probably cringing as he sees that. But for all of you at home, you want to do that. But today, excited to be joined with someone that we've been friends now for a few years. We actually got to meet in person back when that was a thing. And
Yeah, I remember those days.
yeah, so today we have, it's D. Scott Smith, but I know everyone just calls him Scott.
Yep.
He's the motivational listener, and I've always found that to be a fascinating, I guess if you want to call it, description of yourself. So, Scott, welcome to the Tim and Jim show, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Man, I am honored to be on the Jim show today. So thanks for the opportunity. Just those family things, right? So I was born in Southern Cal, but we moved to Oregon when I was a small child, and I didn't spend as many years in the service as Jim here, but other than some time in the Air Force, this is where I choose to live. So I'm in Oregon. Went to school here and choose to live here. Although I have decided that I wanted a location independent business. So that was a really important thing for me, so I can work anywhere, anytime. My wife and I will be celebrating 37 years of marriage this coming August. And we have 3 kids.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. I told her that's a good start.
And hopefully you have at least 37 more to go, if not more.
Why not? Why not?
Right.
Double up.
That's
always
right.
Double up.
Yeah. So today we've got what I think is an amazing, great topic, something that a lot of us struggle with, and that's using business networking as a marketing tool. And you're like, well, wait a minute. How is networking a marketing tool? But Scott is actually, I would say, and I know, right, sometimes people cringe when they hear this word. Scott is an expert at this. And it's amazing getting to know Scott. And when I think as we have this show today and talk with Scott, you'll see how those listening skills have come into play for him as the motivational listener, as a networker, because we're not talking about MLM, folks. We're talking about true networking. Not that there's anything wrong with, I always kind of like the joke, like people say, well, that's a pyramid scheme. Well, in some ways, corporations are pyramid schemes.
To me, so network marketing, MLM, multi-level marketing, it's just a business model. I know that there's some companies out there that have maybe given it kind of a tainted name. It's just a business model.
Absolutely.
That's all. But that's not what I focus on, because those organizations, they put a ton into training their people. They don't need me, but right. It's the solo entrepreneurs, the freelance professionals, those with small businesses, that really it comes down to what's the capacity that your business can serve. How many people can you serve?
Right. Absolutely. And so, Scott, are you ready for question number 1?
No one's ever ready, but yeah, absolutely.
That's
Sure,
right.
go ahead.
That's right. I'm prepared. I don't know if I'm ready. How do you connect with a stranger? Because I think this is a huge struggle for people, especially, I would say, maybe even more so for introverts.
Yeah, it's funny because, if you Google up business networking, I mean, you'll get thousands of articles out there. And not to pick on writers, but those articles were generally written. They're paid by the words. The freelancer was given an assignment, write an article on business networking. So it's the 3 things you need to do. And I remember reading one that the opening line said, extroverts are natural networkers. And I'm like, that is not true. Extrovert and introvert, we all are on this continuum between the two. Maybe a little bit more extrovert, maybe a little bit more introvert, but that's just where you get your energy. It doesn't really have to do with whether or not you can connect to a person. So the extrovert, they get energy by being with groups of people and interacting and large crowds. And if they go to a networking event or they want to connect to that stranger, they may never connect to that person because it's yak, 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 knock, talk, 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 right? Now, the introvert on the other side may never connect to the stranger because they don't say anything. So let me give you, let me give a little bit of the brain science to go with this. So how do you want to connect with somebody? So your brain is an amazing tool. By the way, it'll use about 30% of the energy that you produce. Just your brain is going to take 30% of the energy that you produce every day. It can process so much information that we daydream between 30 and 50% of the time. So if Jim and I talk for a half hour here, he's daydreaming for 15 minutes. I'm daydreaming for 15 minutes. And I hope somewhere along the line we match up, right? And it's not that you're not paying attention or you're being impolite. It's just that your brain can process things so fast that you can think about other things. So if you want to approach a stranger, they're daydreaming. They're thinking about, they may be like one of the guys that I worked with. He was the engineer's engineer from Silicon Valley. And this guy, he tells me, Scott, when I go to a networking event, the first thing that I think when I walk in is, how long do I have to stay before it's rude for me to leave? So, so he's there. And if I was going to go talk to him, man, he's thinking about where's the exit? How am I going to get out of the door? He's thinking about all this stuff. And if I ask him an expected question, are you enjoying the conference? Are you having a good day? You know, those things. He's going to still be thinking about all these other things. But what you want to do is, there's a part of the brain called the orbital frontal cortex. And I'm going like this because it sits right behind your eyeballs. Orbital frontal cortex. It's the error detection part of your brain. When something happens unexpected, it causes your brain to focus and you can no longer daydream. So the example is, you're driving. Jim, you don't need to think about driving. You get in the car, you drive, you're thinking about where you're going, where you came from, what you're going to do this weekend, what kind of mask you need to have wherever you get to wherever you're going, right? But then a squirrel runs out in front of your car. All of a sudden, that's unexpected. Your brain focus. You can't be thinking about all these other things. You're thinking about not squishing the squirrel, not crashing the car. So your orbital frontal cortex caused that to happen. So when you approach someone, and I give everyone full range, full freedom to use this question, say, how's your world? Okay. So what that does is, that's a question that people have to interpret. It's not, are you enjoying the conference? Are you having a good day? Do you like the hors d'oeuvres? Did you find everything you're looking for? Say, how's your world? They have to interpret. And so what happens is, you activate the orbital frontal cortex. They are no longer daydreaming. They're focusing on the question that you asked. And the orbital frontal cortex does one other thing. Well, two other things. They're really important. It imprints your face. It's responsible for facial and vocal recognition. So when I ask you, how's your world? I'm imprinting my face and my voice inside your head. That's the way you connect with someone. And here's the challenge. When you go to next time you go to the store and you're at the cashier and the cashier asks you, did you find everything you're looking for? Are you having a nice day? And you say yes, and you can daydream all this stuff. You ask that cashier, how's your world? And watch what happens. Their brain goes, they're going to interpret. Is it the cash register? Is it my job? Is it my place in the cosmos? Absolutely. You'll connect with them.
Yeah, that's and I love that question, right? It's like, I have a friend, Brian Kennedy. He's also a big networker, and he always, like, if you ask him, "How are you?" He always says, "I'm awesome," right?
Mm,
And I think that's another one that sometimes catches people, like, it's
right.
different. And and I think that's the sort of thing, to your point, like, how's your world? Like, really kind of like, oh, well, that's different, as opposed to
Yeah.
just the regular,
Without
how's it
being
going?
odd, without
Yeah.
being, weird.
Yeah. So Russ Hedge, who we've heard of him, right? He's got
Yeah.
a question for you. Who is your favorite networker other than yourself?
Well, so my partner in the experience. And the full title of that show, Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. GMT, so 10 a.m. on the East Coast for you, Jim. It is Russ Hedge, because it's the experience with Russ and Scott. So who could I choose other than? This
Well,
reminds
you
me.
could pick Tim, and Tim is watching. Tim says hello.
Well,
Tim,
yeah,
glad you could join us. So I didn't pick myself.
there
I
was
picked
but that question, come on, it reminds me of that. There's a comic, and this guy's sitting at his desk, and he's got like two big security cameras aimed at him, and he's on the phone, and he says, "Well, I can't complain." So, yeah, but no,
right.
absolutely. Russ has got it going on. We sharpen each other. He is really good at sending out notes and messages and videos and connecting, because one of the things we say is you need to be connecting to people within your net, with 3 to 5 people within your network every day.
Wow.
And that's Russ, man. Russ is there.
Now, do you do 3 to 5, or do you maybe even do more than that?
Yeah, it's I would say I at least average 3 to 5. Because it's you can't dilute yourself either, and it needs to be authentic. And we know that word is out there a lot, but people can tell if you're just going, if you're like, you feel like that sales guy at the end of the month, right? And it's just like, oh, I got to get through
Got to get my quota in.
I get my quota in. But if you design your day and the way you work so that you're reaching out and connecting to people, and there's an exercise that we can talk about maybe later. I know we haven't even got through the first question. Did we get through the first question?
I don't know.
There's a lot of stuff,
right? I mean,
how's your world?
Yeah, my world is amazing. I get to be on this show with you, and I wish Tim was able to join us today, but I know he'll be back hopefully next week. Which and it's just great to, I can't. It's like I can't complain, right? We get to do this. We get to have our own, if you want to call it, shows on the internet. The FCC hasn't shut us down yet.
No.
So what's there to complain about? And you know what? For all of my friends in Texas and some of these other cold areas, hoping that you guys get your power and heat back, because I do not like the cold either, and that's just been a crazy cold. So
it's been tough. Speaking of that, Russ is just got his power back after a number of days here in Oregon.
Wow.
For my house, we were only out for about 13 hours, so it wasn't a big deal. But there's a lot of people still out.
Right. Absolutely. So I think we're ready for question 2, and we can always follow back on this, and some of this probably ties together. What is a motivational listener?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. What is a motivational listener? Well, if you said, I'm an expert in networking, I said, wow, what an honor. I will claim this, that I am the world's foremost authority on being a motivational listener. Because if you want to be the best, be the only one who does that, right? The whole genesis of this came around when one day somebody asked my wife, and they said, what do you do? And very accurately, she said, I'm a motivational listener. Very accurately said that. And I said, Christine, I love that. I will always give you full credit, which I'm doing now because I'm a very good husband, but I am stealing that. And so in 2016, I gave a talk in Dublin at Samantha Kelly's social media summit, entitled The Psychology and Physiology of Relationships. And that's the first time that I launched that particular phrase, motivational listener. And it was all around, again, it was the science of how we connect, and specifically around how brands interact with their audience. And that what I saw was a lot of companies digitally, and individuals too, treat people differently digitally than they would in person. And so the example is, I was working with a radio station, and the on-air talent would post questions on social media. And so someone had posted on Facebook, "What's the greatest blessing that happened to you this week?" And so here's a man that posts on there, and his face and his name is associated with the comment, and he says, "Our it looks like our family is going to get housing assistance this month." And so, I mean, he's putting himself out there.
Mhm.
Nobody even liked the comment.
Wow.
But if there was a tour of the radio station, he came in on a Saturday, and they meet him and they go, "Oh, hi, David. What's going on? How's your world?" And he says, "Well, looks like we're going to get housing assistance this month." Man, they'd be high-fiving and slapping and shaking his hands and all that stuff, right? But digitally, it was like
Mm.
nothing. And so, anyway, I applied this term of being a motivational listener to that. And that's what we need to be. And so, if you want to boil it down, what does it mean to be a motivational listener? Well, there's a set of specific skills, but the end state is that if we have a conversation, so if Scott and Jim are speaking, and I'm a motivational listener, my goal is for you, Jim, to finish and leave our conversation feeling better about yourself than when you left or than when we started that conversation. And again, it all goes back to how we learn and process information, because Jim is if there's a master, if there's an expert on live streaming, it's Jim. And so if I ask you about live streaming, I go, "Oh, well, what about StreamYard?" And you're like, "Do this and sign up here, and here's the thing, and here's the channels that you can go through, and here's how you set it up, and here's how you get your camera to work, and here's how you want to do these backgrounds and all these things." You weren't born knowing that, right?
True. Very true.
You had to learn that.
Didn't know it
You had
4 years ago.
you had to click and fail and get embarrassed and do it again and do it again. And now it's hardwired into your brain. And so you'd like breathe these things out. You're not going, "Well, hold on. Let me just check my manual here and go,
Right.
let me Google up what StreamYard means." And so the good and bad is that I can go, "Jim, how do I use StreamYard?" And you're like, "This, this, and this." I'm like, "Oh, great, thanks." The bad part of that is that it becomes so much a part of who you are. And again, that you just can breathe these things out, that you forget how remarkable that is, and you undervalue what that is. So my goal as the motivational listeners to go, "Oh my gosh, Jim, here's how you have helped me." And part of the process is to divine between result and motivation. Result is what you do. Oh, you do live streaming. Why do you do that? Because you know that things that people like I have to say and the other guests that you have on the show can help people. And by doing it live, you can get live interaction and comments, and you can connect people, and you can solve problems for people. That's why you do it, right?
Right.
Not
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great
because you're
point.
enamored with the tech,
Mhm.
right? And
Right.
so as we have that conversation, I learn about this and I repeat it back to you in terms of not the result, but in terms of the motivation of why you do it. And you can leave the conversation going, "Holy crap, I'm smart." I help a lot of people, whether you say
But I
it out
love
loud
but
or
I
not.
love that because I mean, it's kinda like what you and Alan have done, like, with the Global Tea Break, right? Which, for
Mhm.
those of you that may not have heard of that, the 3rd Friday of the month, uh, you know, Scott and Alan Hennessy, who I had the pleasure of being on his show yesterday on LinkedIn,
Nice.
they have created this community. It's the Global Tea Break, and a bunch of us get together on a Zoom, and we've gotten to know and learn about each other, right, by listening. Something that Scott is good at. We are connecting, and it's amazing because, right, like you said, I guess you don't think of it that way, but it's like you meet these people that
Mhm.
have a talent that you can appreciate, or that, and I know that's part of with networking and listening as well. That it's like, oh, you need help with this. I know a person, and it's that whole, you know and I think you and I have both been in BNIs at some point. It's that
Mhm.
transference of trust.
Right.
But once you learn that, you don't necessarily have to be in a networking group to do it, and I think the world has really changed. But and it's funny, right? We don't think about how what you said earlier. It's like, yeah, I guess a lot of this stuff does it's that whole repetition, right? It becomes second nature.
Right.
And, like for you, I know there's a lot of things when it comes to networking, when it comes to listening skills, it's second nature. I mean, you've written a couple books about this stuff. I mean, it's right. It's just you
Yeah.
kept doing it. But we none of us were born with it, right?
That's exactly it. And, but because it's so much a part of who you are, you almost feel as, isn't this just common knowledge? Right? Don't people just know how to make things happen when they program in Python? And you're like, that's a language? And they're like, oh yeah, it's just this. And it's, sometimes some things, like my wife, she goes, I know I'm going to get lost when someone is going to give me directions. And the first thing they say is, it's really easy to find.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I'm going to get lost
Yeah.
because it's not right.
Yeah.
Things are
So
not easy. Things are
so
not easy.
Tim's got an interesting question.
Yeah.
Does how's your world work in direct messages or more so in person or on video calls? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's for me, this is something that we're doing in real time, right? So if you're reaching out through the written word, you're not going to have the same opportunity to focus somebody's attention, to activate the orbital frontal cortex, which is really what that question is designed to do. So
Gotcha.
that's it, and it works face to face, and it works digitally, when we're online, uh, in a phone call or a video call, something like that.
Right. And I guess that's maybe where doing a video, like, response of some sort, maybe you could tie it in that way because there's a little bit more context there. But yeah, that's an interesting question, Tim.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No,
yeah,
Tim nailed it. We're really looking at how do we connect in a live situation. So, sending that out as an email opening, "How's your world?" Uh,
right.
that's it's not gonna have quite the same impact, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Very, very true. Well, we're gonna take a quick break, not break, but a word from our sponsor, StreamYard, and then we'll be right back. And
whew,
just in case Tim didn't see it the first time, I know Tim's gonna kill me later, but that's okay.
that's
Um,
alright.
but yeah, and Sue Ann loves the activate the orbital frontal cortex.
Yes,
That's
absolutely. There's
yeah,
great stuff out there.
absolutely. So, we've talked about a couple of things, I mean, and there's so much we could be talking about. How do you use science-based methods to build a network? Because you
Mhm.
hit on some of the science earlier.
Yep.
Let's dig a little bit more into that.
Yeah, so we kinda talked about, a little bit about how you retain information and you can just breathe this stuff out. We talked about, focusing your brain on, when you connect live. And, one of the things that is important to know is that the relationships that we create digitally.
Mhm.
So Jim and I, we were connected for a long time before we ever met face to face.
Right.
But the relationships that we create digitally can be just as strong as those we create face to face. And one of the studies that was done was they put people at the base of a hill and they had them there alone. And this is a academic study, so they're using a number of volunteers, subjects, whatever. And so they ask them, how steep is this hill? And so they would, estimate how steep it is, however they did that. Then they had that same person stand with a friend next to them. And then they asked, and the people that had a friend next to them, invariably, the hill seemed less steep than when they were alone.
Oh, wow.
Now, the when people were also told, just think of a good friend. So somebody's not even there. Just think of a good friend. The hill was less steep than when they were alone. So we need each other. So the research also shows that we live healthier, happier, longer lives when we're networked in, right? So this is all part of the science that goes with it. So when we connect, and there's a couple of different types of support that we get from our network. There's perceived support and enacted support, and we would think that enacted support is the type that allows us to live longer. Enacted support is like people doing work for you, helping you carry the load, doing things. It turns out that perceived support is even more important. So perceived support is just knowing that people are there. So there was just as an example, the way people think about perceived support, just knowing that something is available. There was a gas station, and it was open, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., something like that, right? So the manager decided that they were going to be open 24 hours. So they weren't going to close at 9 o'clock. That gas station sold a lot more gas, but they didn't sell more gas between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. They sold more gas during the regular hours that they were open. But the reason is people didn't have to think, oh, what time does it close at 8 or does it close at 9? They just went. And so that's an example of perceived support. So how do we build our network based off of this? Well, when we create relationships, we also create responsibility. And so one of the things that for me is really important, and I know there's a number of people out there that will be able to tell you this, is that we have obligations. So there's this big freeze. If my neighbor, my friend, has a freeze and their pipe busts, and they're like, "Hey, Scott," my phone rings, and they're like, "Hey, Scott, we had a pipe bust. Can you come help us get furniture out of the house?" You get up and go. Now, I can't drive to Texas because I'm in Oregon. I can't physically do that. But when we read comments through social media, when we get an email from somebody, if you know that person and you can read their emotions, and this is where emotional intelligence is a huge part of networking. And I always say body language is not important, but emotional intelligence is critical. So when you read that email, you see that comment, you find that post or something, if somebody has something to celebrate, then celebrate with them. But a lot of times people are just like, man, this is hard. Something's hard. Send them a private message, give them a call, do something. Right.
And I think that's actually a really important thing, right? Sometimes it's better to handle things in private instead of making it public. And I know I'll do that. That's kind of my style, right? Like if I saw somebody is struggling with something, needs help with something, I'm not going to like put it out. Even if they're asking for it on social, I'm not going to put it out there for all to see. I'm going to like private message them and say, "Hey, Scott, I saw you're having a challenge, whatever. How can I help you?" Because I think, it's almost like I feel like sometimes if you put it out there like, "Oh, look at me, I'm this great helper." I just don't, for me, it just, it's almost like you're looking for people to pat you on the back because you offer to help someone.
Yeah. So I saw a post, and it was a friend of mine was living in Europe and had just gone through a painful breakup of a relationship.
Mhm.
And so I DM'd that individual a link, and I go, "Look, my Zoom room is open right now. Here's the link. If you want," right? And we ended up just texting back and forth, but it was just like, pick up the responsibility, take that responsibility. There was the story I tell is that, and these were just 3 things that happened to happen in the same week. And so I was in the office, and this is a different company I was working with. And out the front window, there were some railroad tracks, and there was a person on a bicycle that rode by, and hit the railroad tracks, and they had a basket on the front, and it came detached and it dropped down. And I remember saying, well, I'm glad they didn't have a puppy in there. And but she was trying to get the basket attached on there. And I thought, hey, you know what? There's some zip ties in the back room. I can go grab those, run out, put the zip tie, fix the basket. And simultaneously, I think, yeah, but by the time I go back, get them, come out, go across the street, she'll be gone. So why bother? But I got them and I came out and I said, hey, can I help? She's like, thank you. So put the zip ties on, secure the basket, trim them off. She goes off. I don't know her. She doesn't know me. She's gone. Then I'm going into the grocery store, and here's this guy with this car, hoods up. He's got like this ancient battery cables trying to start his car. And I say, hey, I got some cables. My car's right over here. Let me come over and see, because he's not getting his car started. Right. So I come over, we hook it up, try to start. It's not the battery. I don't know what it is. But then I said, is there anyone I can call? He says, no, I got some friends that are coming and they'll take care of it. I said, okay, great. Another time, I'm walking into Home Depot, and here's this couple. They got the back of their minivan open, and they got this pallet with this enormous box they're trying to shove into the back of it. The guy is like 6'5", and she's like 4'9" or something, right? And they're struggling with this. I walk in, and you could kind of tell there was like this little husband and wife thing, going on. But I'm like, hey, can I give you a hand? Put that in there. And they're like, no, we've got it. And I'm like, okay, fine. So, and then I shop and I come out, and they're still struggling with it while I go on. Okay. So it's not me in particular, but these are just three things that happen to me in the same week. And I guarantee you that these things happen to you as well. Opportunities to help. Sometimes you can help people. Sometimes you can't help people. Sometimes people won't let you help them, but it doesn't mean that we don't offer. And so to me, that's anyway, we need to accept the responsibility when we create relationships.
I love that. I love that. And so this kind of leads to I think this has been a big challenge for all of us during these last 11 months. And I think you've come up with some great ways to overcome it. But how do you network at virtual events?
Mhm. Well, so here's one of the things that Google this up too: imposter syndrome. Right? First of all, we doubt ourselves, and I guarantee you that I was listening to a Clubhouse a little bit earlier, and Mark Schaefer, who's written a number of books, is releasing a new book, Marketing Rebellion. This is one that I have a copy of.
Yeah, I've got
He's
his new
on.
book. It's a Cumulative Advantage, I
Yeah,
believe it.
yeah. So
Yes.
he's just releasing that, right?
Yep.
And I guarantee you that even someone like Mark Schaefer will have a little bit of doubt on occasion. So we all have it. Doesn't matter. But the first thing is understand that you have value to offer. You wouldn't be going to an event, virtual or otherwise, if you didn't belong there. I mean, this is the first thing. This is know that you have something to offer. Now, maybe you need to spend some time with a mastermind or a coach or someone to help you refine what that is, so that you can create it, so that you can articulate what that is, right? But know what that is. So know the problem you solve, the offer, the solution that you have, and why it's better, novel, why people should use you, and then who your target audience is, right? Who benefits from this. So if you have those three things set ahead of time, when you go into the networking event, and you're not there necessarily to sell, you're there to connect with people, and there's a lot more behind that. But the first thing is to go, I have something to offer, so that's valuable in itself, and then you just got to be willing to hit connect. I got this invite to a networking event that was basically for people that were associated with this university outside of London. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll put on my schedule. And then the day came, and I'm going, do I want to do this? So I hit the button, right? Oh, what a great experience. I am so glad that I did it. And so the same thing. Know that you have value, understand what that is, and that you're there. And if you're practicing the skills of being a motivational listener, that so you're not there and going, oh, let me be real pushy and sell you something, right? It's let me find out. Oh, Jim, what do you do? And there's a series of questions that you can take people on. I call it taking them on a conversational journey, right? So if I ask you, what does it mean, this live stuff that you do? These
Right.
And you start
What
explaining it
is
to me.
this live streaming you talk of?
What is this live streaming thing? And then you go, oh, well, you get this, and here's some tools like I was like, oh, okay. Well, how did you decide to get involved in this?
Right.
Right. And so what it is I'm reminding you again about the things that it took to get from where you were not knowing about live streaming to being an expert in live streaming. So
Yep.
as you go to these networking events, find those opportunities to not interrogate people, but to bring out in them. Not just active listening means I'm paying attention, I'm nodding,
Mhm.
I'm repeating what you say, but being a
Right.
motivational listener, you're guiding that conversation.
Yep.
You're asking people questions that remind them how remarkable they are.
Yeah. Well, like you, right? Chris is saying right now, playing a bass guitar together at virtual events is a great way to connect, right, Scott? And I can see that
Absolutely.
guitar behind you.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
you have a skill, as does my friend Chris, our friend Chris, to play a bass guitar. Now, I can't play a bass guitar, but I did at one time in life play the piano, so I might be able to, hit a couple tunes out while you guys play the guitar. But
there you go.
but I don't know, maybe that's something I'll take up is learning the guitar. My brother does it, but no, that's a great point, right? Just by being in a virtual like a Zoom, right? Maybe
Mhm.
they've got something behind them that is right, like you're saying, like, "Hey, why do you have that?" Like I was on an event earlier today and I saw the guy had the Air Force football behind him. I was like, "Oh, are you in the Air Force?" Right? I was like, "Oh, I was
Right,
in the Marines." So we have that you get that connection just by
right.
being willing to ask the other person. Maybe you have that thing. I think that's but I love how you said earlier too that we all have something to offer of value. And I think, too many times it's like, "Oh, well, I don't deserve to be here," right? It's like I'm just glad that I got to enter the Zoom. And but I think we're all human, right? None of us are
Right.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the other things that you find have been helpful with, networking at virtual events?
Yeah. So, understanding you have offer, being able to articulate what that offer is, and then asking people questions. But the other part is really um, understanding what the needs are in your network. And so your network is there's some different types, and I'm going to give you some inside information here.
Okay.
Um, uh, so let's pull it back. There's two types of networks. There's the extended network, and then there's your active network. So your extended, Jim, how many connections do you have on LinkedIn?
Thousands.
Yeah, I've got like 2,300, and
Right.
I guarantee you, I do not know 2,300 people.
Right. Right.
Um, but that's the extended network,
Right.
and the active network. If we follow Dunbar's rule, means we can manage about 100 to 150 relationships.
Mhm.
And so, and this goes to the offer that I have for you guys, for your audience, is that take your LinkedIn connections, download your LinkedIn connections, and it'll go into a spreadsheet, and then parse it down to the ones that you would actually do business with, and ruthlessly, not eliminating them from your LinkedIn profile, but just from the spreadsheet. Eliminate the people that you don't know. Eliminate the people that you wouldn't do business with. That is, they will never give you a referral. You'll never get a referral for them. And if you do that and you're honest about it, not I hope to do business with them or whatever, it's would you or would it, do you or don't. You're every time I've done this a number of times through my connections. I get about 130 people that I
Wow.
actually do business with. And so and here's the key. Those people in that 100 to 150 people, they don't all have the same role within my network. There's 5 very distinct roles within your
Mm,
network. You have mentors and advisors. So who is it you turn to for advice? You've got mentees. Who is it that you're giving back to, that you're encouraging, right? And then you've got customers. Customers are a great source of referrals and repeat business and testimonials. So they have a very specific role. Then you have partners. Partners is actually the largest portion of your network. Partners are people who solve problems that you don't solve, but allow you to add value in your network. So when a friend calls me up and says, "Hey, Scott, I'm thinking about starting some sort of a live broadcast and I want to multi stream it out." And I'm like, "Oh, let me introduce you to Jim. He knows what's going on." Right. And so it's not a problem I solve, but I'm the hero because I got to take a person with a problem and connect them up with someone who solves it. So partners are the biggest part of your network. Then the fifth role within your network are advocates. Advocates are people who actually send you referrals. They're the people who will stand up for you publicly and promote you. That's a small group. Out of that 150, 130 people, you may only have 10 or 20 people that actually send referrals to you. So when you analyze your network and you go into that networking event, what are you looking for? Are you looking for mentors and advisors? Are you looking for
yeah.
someone to be a mentee for you? And I'll tell you what, it is fine to go to networking events looking for customers. I know that a lot of the articles out there say, "Oh, don't sell." I'm like, look, if that person has a problem and you solve it, don't withhold that from them,
Well, it
right?
was interesting. So in Lois Kramer, like I said, was listening to her earlier, it's like people don't like to be sold, but they like to buy.
Got
And I
that
was
right.
like, "Ah."
Got that right.
So if you think about it from that perspective of, like, just, like, by telling people what you do without,
Mhm.
because right, let's say right now, Scott, all of you that are out there on LinkedIn sending connection requests, and the next thing you do is pitch us, just stop it.
I love it. I haven't deleted this one, but I shared it into the. So I have a private Facebook group, the Business Networking Tips group, and I shared this one in because I got a link or a connection request, and so I go by my middle name Scott, but there's a lot
Mhm.
of Scotts and Smiths out there in the world, so I use my first initial D Scott Smith. So I get this connection request, and then I've got the title motivational listener. So here's how that message came to me. Dear D period, comma. I'm always interested in adding more motivational listeners to my network. And I'm like, really? How many do you have? Because
Right?
and by the way, I am the world's foremost authority on being a motivational listener. So you've selected wisely.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is too funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think that's a great point. I mean, those are the things I love how you broke that down into 5, right? I guess, and maybe that becomes part of your strategy when you go to a virtual event is like who are those people you're specifically looking for,
Yeah.
right? It's kinda like that whole thing of, like, going to a networking event, whether it's virtual or in person, and, "Oh, I'm gonna get everyone's business card." It's kinda
Mm,
like marketing, "Oh, my market is everyone." It's not. You're gonna end up wasting a lot of time and
yeah.
energy. I
Yeah.
think, you've gotta know who your, ideal not even know who your ideal client is, but I love how you even talk about, like, who are the partners you're looking for? Because having a partner, right? Or I think, sometimes I know you're definitely looked at as a connector. I think sometimes I am as well.
Yeah.
It's like,
Like,
I can refer you to someone that I know can solve your problem,
right.
and I do that because I like to help people. I know you do it for the same reason. So when you go into a networking event, I think that's one of those mindsets you gotta take in. It's like, it's not always what's in it for me, but what can I do to help others by learning what these other people can bring to the table?
It's one of the reasons why people hate going to networking events because they feel like it's going to be an hour and a half of bad commercials and hard sells.
Mhm.
And remember, like you said, back in those days when we could meet face to face, and you go to the networking event, and you're introducing to somebody, and you're shaking their hand, and they're stating their name and job, but what you hear is, "Hi, I'm Scott Smith. How can I make money off of you?" Right?
Right,
And it's just
absolutely.
like, yeah. And so here's a lot of so there's a different platform out there. I know you're familiar with AirMeet, which is another one of the platforms for conferencing and the digital events. And I do run a networking Q&A on Monday mornings. It's 8 Pacific, so 11 Eastern. And I just started running that on AirMeet because I want people familiar with the platform. But one of the things that they have there is speed networking. Right? I was going to say speed dating, speed networking. And so if you've got like 20, 30, 40 people in the room, then you can hit the speed networking thing and you connect, and it might be 5 minutes. And rather than, "Hi, I'm Scott. How can I make money off of you, Jim?" Um, I can actually, and I literally have had these conversations. So we mentioned that Russ is the master of follow up. So he'll be on something like this, and he'll see a comment from somebody, and he'll follow up with that person and say, "Hey, can we have a conversation? Have a little Zoom meeting, phone call, whatever." And so when I've done those, I remember setting up and talking to somebody, and the conversation was basically, "What are you looking for?"
Mhm.
And I can authentically say, "I'm just looking to see if you'd be a good partner, because I understand you're a writer. I know people that say, 'I need some writing done.' So I want to find out what you do and who you serve, and maybe you'll be one of the people that I add into my network as a partner." That's so much more refreshing than saying, "Well, I'm just prospecting to see which of my services I can get you to buy, how much I can get you to buy."
Mhm.
So
That is
that's
awesome.
and it's critical in building your network.
Yep. So Scott, I know what I've, given folks is your website because I know there's so many places that people can connect with you, and I've put your offer into the chat, folks, for those of you, whether you're watching live or on replay. This has been amazing, Scott. I mean, so besides your website, what are some of the projects you're working on, and what's, some ways for people to connect with you?
Yeah. So again, I have a business networking Facebook group, and that's all about education. So it's not a tips or referrals or leads group. We just talk about education. So that's facebook.com/group/business networking tips. And in there, so then I'm running on Mondays, a 30-minute networking Q&A. It's kind of a little mini mastermind. I am running that on AirMeet, so you can join the Facebook group. You'll see the invite there. And again, I just want people to be familiar with that as a tool, so we can be better at connecting.
Yeah, I'd like to
Every
check that out.
Yeah, every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Pacific, it's The Experience with Russ and Scott, and we have great guests on there, and that's a lot of fun. That's a quick 30 minutes. It's just a talk show. We talk about life and interesting things. Today's show was a blast. I encourage everyone to watch the replays out there on YouTube. We had some great conversations there, but it's just a talk show, and we get an opportunity to talk about how to connect and what problems we solve. And so, and then every month we have um, the virtual global tea break with Alan Hennessy. So the experience is co-hosted with Russ Hedge, Alan Hennessy, and I do the tea break. That's 90 minutes of networking, connection, and education there. And then I have added a clubhouse. So we do so Monday afternoons at 1:30 Pacific, so 3:30, 4:30
4:30
Central,
East 4:30
4:30
Eastern.
Pacific or Eastern time, right?
Yes,
I,
yeah.
I was thinking Central because I co-host that with Scott Weaver. He's in Franklin, Tennessee, and
Okay.
we just messed around business questions there. So this last Monday, it was really a lot about Kajabi and a lot of these tools around email lists and things that we need to work on. And so there you go. And
Awesome.
Twitter is still my favorite platform.
Yep.
D_Scott is
Yep.
still my favorite.
Have you been on a Twitter Spaces yet?
I have not. I have not.
So tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific, Madeline has been doing a Twitter Spaces after chat for Twitter Smarter, which goes
Oh,
at
yeah.
1 Eastern. So you might want to check that out. I think that's got a lot of potential as well, especially since, right,
I
we
don't
already
know.
have a good network on there. So this has been great. Next week, we've got an exciting guest. We've got JJ Ramberg. She's with Good Pod. So if you're a podcaster, you might want to tune in because it's a platform that's helping promote podcasters. And of course, actually, Scott, I think you and I are both speaking at Podfest Global.
That's right. Yeah, Podfest Global. I know my time is. I'll be speaking again on networking at 3:30 Eastern time on the 22nd, and
Nice,
we're
nice.
going for a Guinness World Record. So
Yes,
everyone
that's
who
right.
joins makes us one person closer.
That's right. That's right. We want to beat the record from last time. Scott, thank you again for joining us. This has been so much fun. I wish Tim could have joined us. We'll have to have you back sometime when Tim is feeling better and do this again because I think we could dive deeper into some of these things. I know we just scratched the surface because
That'll
I
be
guess
fun.
you could almost say networking is continuous, right?
It should be. It's not a one and
Absolutely.
done,
Yep.
but it is the most effective and most efficient tool again for solo entrepreneurs, for freelancers, for those of us who don't need thousands of customers or hundreds of customers. We just need a handful of customers.
Right.
So
Yep. All
lean
right.
into your network.
Thanks again, Scott. Thank you, everyone, for watching us, whether you're watching us live or on replay. And we'll see you next week. Take care.